Another big update here. Stormgate 0.40 is out. We're going to watch a quick video reacting to this. A lot of new stuff here.
Hi all, this is Tim Campbell here from the Stormgate team, and I'm pleased to bring you some news about our 0.4 content update. With this release, we are unveiling the first look at our newly revamped campaign experience. This is something our team has been hard at work on for months, and I'm personally very excited to get into your hands so that we can hear what you think about it. However, it's also important to note that it's just the start for us, as we have more missions coming up very soon, as well as chapters 2 and 3 of the Vanguard campaign that are on track for a release later this year towards the end of summer. We've also jammed 0.4 full of all sorts of changes that are outside of campaign, including changes to the core pacing, our versus mode, our factions. So let's dive into the details and let's unpack all of the goodies we have in store for you with this release. The first 6 campaign missions have been completely rebuilt from the ground up. We're talking new storylines, cutscenes, art, audio, mission design, and more. You'll explore the Raptor 1, which now serves as our brand new campaign hub. Interact with your crew via the new conversation system.
Oh, hi. Still getting used to so many people.
And make strategic choices with the tech decision tree. Use credits earned from bonus objectives to unlock army upgrades and research randomized artifacts to help you on your missions by customizing what your forces are capable of doing. Report to mission control to get your upcoming mission briefing or retry an old mission.
Lieutenant, the drop window is rapidly approaching.
Heroes now even gain XP and advance in levels, with a progression that is tracked from mission to mission. With each level advanced, gain a new point to spend on traits that customize hero abilities in a variety of ways. Lots of other improvements have been crammed in as well, including checkpoint save load improvements and post-game stats from Versus now being brought to campaign. However, campaign isn't the only thing we've been working on.
So real quick here. I didn't play through the campaign in the first iteration. I did cast it at the Stormgate event that we produced here in Seoul, where we had Ziggy play through and we were just roasting Ziggy the whole time. A few days ago on stream, I did play through the first 3 missions. On this stream, by the way, when we're done here, I'm going to hop on those missions, or the next chapter of missions, and play through those 3. But it is a totally different campaign. It's like not even the same missions. So they massively redid it. I had no clue it was going to be that different. Anyways, we're going to play a little bit more.
On the faction front, we've been very busy too. For the Vanguard, we've added new models for the Servo, which is our new Vanguard.
I like this. I like the floating units. It reminds me a little bit more of StarCraft 1, StarCraft 2. I also find it's like a little bit easier to see the units because they're moving a little bit differently, but I think this is a good upgrade here from the Bob to, I don't know, the legless Bob, the floating Bob.
Worker, the new Hedgehog, the new Hornet, and even the new Evac. On the Infernals, we've updated several of their units, including new models for the...
These both look great, by the way. I like the fact that the Gaunt is a quadruped. I like what they did with the Brute. I think the colors just look a lot better. I don't think it's done yet either, but it's so much better. And I think it's more kind of fitting with the sort of demon theme. I feel like a little in the last iteration of Infernal, it was like, are they orcs or are they demons? You know what I mean? Are they satanic or are they kind of powerful, kind of gorilla-like primitive people?
Brute.
And I think we get kind of more of a demon feel for this.
Fiend and Gaunt, as well as new textures for the Spriggan and Flayed Dragon. We've also replaced Infest with a similar but more thematically...
I like the attack from the Brute here too, mixed with the sounds. The biggest issue when they released Stormgate last time was the sounds weren't like, and I've said this like in every video about Stormgate, but it is true. It's like RTS is a very audio experience. Like you're going to get a lot of pleasure and a lot of signals from hearing everything happening. It's one of those things you don't notice until you don't have it. It's why I've always been perplexed by people that played StarCraft at tournaments that didn't have sound on. I'm like, really? You don't use the sound to play? There's so many things you can get from it. But like just going back to this fight here, this sounds a lot better and kind of matches the the art. Like you can see the animation of the brute raising, you know, whatever the sword is or the club, and then as it hits, you can kind of hear it hit.
Dragon. We've also replaced Infest with a similar but more thematically appropriate curse mechanic, which now spawns new timed life phantoms that can be balanced independently from fiends.
So that's interesting. Now spawns new timed life phantoms that can be balanced independently from fiends. I was never as worried about this, but a lot of people were worried about trying to balance the fiends out. And so maybe kind of separating this with new timed life phantoms is a safer way to approach this long term. Anyways, yeah, that's great.
Shroud has also been heavily updated for the Infernals. It now spreads up ramps as well as down, and it even corrupts any trees that it touches.
So I like that it corrupts the trees. I like that it goes up. I think that's kind of a fun. That's going to make for some fun strategies for attacking up. I don't know about you guys, but there's something about the Shroud on my eyes that I don't quite like. Like it's almost too strong. Like maybe there's almost too much red in the middle. Or maybe it's that it's too gray. Like when I look at this, I see the kind of gray. And it's definitely an improvement, by the way, but I see sort of grayness in these units. And then the gray on the ground. And then I feel like when I see a big fight, it's a little bit harder to tell. Where I feel like the Shroud should always have to be kind of its own. The same way that like on some maps, the terrain, nothing matches the units. Yeah, Mech, that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's harder to see the units in the buildings under it. Or at least I'm not used to it. Now, that being said, I did just play Warcraft 3, which I thought, in Grubby's tournament, which I always thought was just such a hard game to follow as a StarCraft player, so maybe I have to develop an eye for this. But that's always been one of the biggest downsides for Warcraft 3 as a game that would spread around or pick up new players, was it's like sometimes just hard to look at and see. And I think one of the advantages that StarCraft always had is, especially Brood War, I think even more than StarCraft 2, is that you can kind of just look at it and really quickly see what's happening. But this is definitely an improvement.
Shroud is also now visualized on the mini-map, so it's easier to tell where it's covering places and where it isn't. All Infernal structures now emit Shroud, and structures build faster when placed on areas already covered in Shroud.
See, now this is really good. These are, when I was learning Warcraft 3 for the last couple weeks, I looked at it and I thought, damn, man, everything has like a special rule and allows me to, the more I know about the game, the more I can like exploit the things inside of the game to make cooler strategies and interesting stuff. And I think simple stuff like this is interesting. It's not about can you build on the Shroud or not. It's that if you build off the Shroud, it takes longer. It's like Terran buildings. Okay, if they get into the red, they burn down. But they can absorb a certain amount of damage, but once it gets past that point, okay, you got to do something. So if a building's in the middle of the map, suddenly it's not going to be viable long term. And I think when developing an RTS game, it's important to have these little interesting things that to a lot of people are forgettable, but will make for interesting situations in multiplayer games and make for very unique strategies. Like, is there a way to do some strategy where you can rush them super fast because you can build on Shroud? Or, do you want to try something risky, but you're going to be penalized because it's going to be off Shroud? Stuff like that is great. By the way, I've always felt like they were the most on target with Infernal. I always felt like Vanguard with Stormgate, it was like they were trying to make Terran, but maybe not as exciting or interesting, or some kind of iteration of that. But maybe not as brave and not as bold. But I think with Infernal, I felt like they really kind of had a better, more interesting, more fun race to play just when you're developing. And you got to remember, you need to be having fun and be challenged while you're base building and doing stuff and having to make complicated decisions. And so I think they did a really good job with this here.
Art-wise, we've also updated two of our hero characters.
Taking the lead.
Riker and Malik.
The dead will.
I do like the multiple arms here. I think that's just such a better version of what Infernal should look like. I thought that's just really cool.
Serve.
As well as added new NPC models for a range of characters in our campaign and Raptor 1 crew members. For our 1v1 versus mode, we've continued to fine-tune the speed, pacing, and level of excitement in our competitive gameplay.
So I have not played the 1v1 multiplayer yet. I will. I plan to. I've been crazy busy trying to get this RSL tournament set up. But when I played the campaign, I was stunned by how much better the units move. It felt like before, when I played Stormgate, it was like all the units were standing in a swimming pool. Like in a waist-high swimming pool, if that makes sense. Like if you try to run from one side of the pool to the other, it's like it's sort of slow and it did not feel fast, is what I'm trying to say. And now things move quickly. Things are being killed faster. I think they say this in a sec. They drop the HP.
Unit move speeds have been increased across the board, averaging somewhere between 15 to 25%.
Yeah, you see this? How much faster this is moving? It feels a lot better to move around. It's so much better. And I think the fact that things die faster makes it more interesting. A lot of times you'd have these fights and it was like closer to a Warcraft 3 fight in some ways, but without all the hero spells to cast, without all the items to use, so it just sort of felt like nothing was going on. And it's not, I've had the conversation of Warcraft 3 versus StarCraft 2 versus StarCraft 1 so much, it's almost like one of the conversations I can't do unless I'm like doing it in a broadcast or recording, because I've talked, people want to talk to me about this a lot. StarCraft 2 is the fastest game. It's crazy, like on a knife's edge. It's faster than StarCraft 1 and Warcraft 3. Very punishing. Someone in my chat just a second ago was talking about Widow Mines. Like, yeah, you can lose all your workers like that. Warcraft 3, the fights are extremely long and they can literally take minutes. But you have all these items. There are these creeps on the map. There are summons, like lots of them in battles. Heroes can be killed and then bought right back at the shop. There's like a lot of complex decision-making that goes on, and the macro's a lot slower. And then StarCraft 1 is somewhere in between where the fights are much slower than StarCraft 2, but you can micro a little bit more inside of them, and that's in part due to the clunky AI, which is a very polarizing topic within StarCraft 1. But it at least moves at a slow enough pace that you can... like one good player with better micro will always beat another player with better micro, with the right interactions. And I felt like Stormgate was somewhere but like behind StarCraft 1 and closer to Warcraft 3, but it didn't have the items, it didn't have all the decisions that were interesting. And so having things quicker like this, just to go back a second here, this looks
unit move
a lot
speeds
better.
Have been increased across the board, averaging somewhere between 15 to 25% faster, depending on the unit type. This feels really nice to play, putting you...
Yeah, see, this looks a little bit slower than StarCraft 2, which might actually be good, but fast enough that like it feels like there's action happening, like you're gonna get dopamine hits, you're gonna get a rush when you're in a fight.
More in control, and enabling some of our previously slower units to become more viable.
Yeah, so what is this unit called? Why am I forgetting the name of this unit? What this guy with the Weaver, thank you. In my head, I call this like a daddy long legs, whatever. The Weaver was so slow. It was so painfully slow. For no good reason, I think. I think it kind of forced these like really weird, drawn out fights that were not necessarily interesting. But yeah, just seeing that this is faster. Stuff should move around fast. It's going to make for interesting games. A lot of this, and especially I think Vanguard versus Infernal, in my experience, would just kind of become these like tense... it was akin to like the Broodlord Infestor problem in StarCraft 2, which has permeated. It'd be like bubbles up from time to time. And look, it's not like it's necessarily bad, but like I feel like it does make for kind of a problem. We would have that, but on a larger scale. Like what you don't want is like this, like two armies like kind of like going like this for too long, just shooting abilities at each other. I think an advantage that StarCraft has is that you can have a lot of stuff happening at once, and you want to be able to move around the map. And so I'm so relieved to see this because I thought the pacing was so painfully slow with late game tech that it's almost like if the game went on for too long, it wasn't interesting. So this is good to see too.
Our Tier 1 units also now have a lower health value across the board. Generally speaking, we want to see more carnage in the early game, and have compensated for this with faster training times. We've also removed starting combat units. Players no longer begin with a scout or a hexen.
So I think this is good. By the way, I'm going to call out all RTS games right now. I know this is a Stormgate video, but everybody does this weird thing where they're like, because I've talked to all these publishers, and ones for games that people don't know about yet, they're a little bit too caught up with like new players. And then you go, okay, but you need to have hardcore players. In my opinion, you need to make them happy because they're the people that actually play RTS games all day and will spend money in your game if it's good. But then when they say that, they end up with these making decisions a lot more complicated for players. Like in Stormgate, I think one of the mistakes they made was like they give Vanguard a dog, and then they give what did they give the Infernal? What is that unit called? Suddenly, I can't remember Infernal units in this video anymore. The guy that could summon the eyeball, a Hexen. Thank you. So it's like, just keep it simple. In fact, I think they might even want to try this with less workers at the start. I don't know why they have so many workers here. Why is that easier? Because players have to spam out buildings faster? I just feel like I have so many conversations with RTS game publishers where they're talking about new players, and then the first couple steps they put in the game are not new player friendly. Like, I think one of the, and by the way, if you've listened to my casting, I used to say I like that they added more workers in StarCraft 2 because it sped up the game. I think it made it a lot harder for new players to pick up the game after that. I think 6 workers might have been better, or if they were going to do balance changes, okay, now it's 8 workers. Now it's 10. Now we're going to go to 4. Let's change the game that way. Because now players who are new to the game, they have to make like all their fucking buildings immediately. Why is this better? And I don't think people at Blizzard or any of these RTS games, I don't think they think like this. Like in Battle Aces, why do I have all my workers at once? Why? Like, what? This is like something people don't pay attention to. You know, how is the game easier or better if I just money is just being, you know, it's like I'm chugging beers or something. You know, there's so much coming in here. Like what? Maybe it's better to have less. I just want to put this out here. Like with Stormgate, I thought having a scouting unit early was a mistake. I think the way to make a game easy early on is to just let people kind of feel like they're moving into the game. I've been playing a lot of StarCraft 1 on the stream, and I'll tell you something. There's something nice about the 4 workers. The concept is Dark like Snipe says, less workers, you go boring, nothing happened is probably the logic. You're right, nothing's happening except for what's going on in my brain as a player in the hardest genre ever. Do you know how many things I have to like map out in my head? I think a lot of people that are making RTS games have forgotten what happens when you need to be making all these difficult decisions early on. So I feel like, you know, I get 4 workers, I go, okay, what part of the map am I on? What creeps? You know what's also slow at the start? Warcraft 3. It's got a very slow start. You make a couple buildings, but you don't make that many workers. But you at least, okay, where am I going to creep? All right, let's make a unit. Let's try to scout. And I just want to put this out here. The players should be eased into the game. This decision to remove, those units is good. You can scout with a worker. Okay, fine. But you know, it's important to not just speed up the game for the sake of speeding up the game. And I think in Wings of Liberty, we had more interesting rushes. So I don't get this whole... I think both Stormgate and Battle Aces, look, they can do whatever they want, but it's like, it might be more user-friendly to not, put me where you think I'm supposed to be. And I'm a guy that plays RTS games and like RTS games. I think it's a little bit better to have a slower start. I saw someone earlier mention esports, and is it exciting? Dude, the biggest esports titles, I feel like everything is counterintuitive these days. League of Legends, Dota, all these games that get a lot of viewers that are at least somewhat similar to RTS games, have these slow starts, okay? People are fine with a little bit of a slow pace in a game and kind of looking around and seeing what people are doing. This is not... I know that TikTok exists, and now people have decided like a whole new generation doesn't have a attention span. So do podcasts. People like long form stuff. It's okay to have a slow start. It lets the viewer kind of look, okay, so what spots are they in? Are they going to tech to something interesting? Is one guy making something in the middle of the map? Like StarCraft 2, they could have balanced that game a lot more interestingly if they had one patch with a lot of workers. Now in this new season of StarCraft 2, we're going to go to 8 workers. It's more than 6, like when the game started. We could go back to 4, like they did in Brood War. You can play around with this and make completely different games. And, you know, I think the same thing with Battle Aces. It's like I get all my workers at right when the expo is done. I don't get like some, or I don't get a choice in that. Like I get a base, and then it's like, okay, my base is making, and all my workers are making. I don't know. You see what I'm saying? And I don't even really have an answer. I'm kind of just ranting here, but I feel like this is worth pointing out. It's not even something I had planned to say until I saw this, and I thought, oh yeah, this always bothers me. You know, yeah, I don't know. I'll kind of, I could talk about this forever. I think it's fine to experiment with accelerated economies. I think it's fine to, you know, you have, you know, Battle Aces wants to have all the workers come out at once. I think it's fine to experiment with something different. I think it's okay. I think a lot of publishers just sort of, they go, workers. Okay, don't worry. We're going to take this old idea and then throw it in here. But I think there's a lot more ways that you can make a game more pleasurable or experimenting by doing that. Final thought on this, you know, Blizzard sort of viewed last hitting and creeps in League of Legends and Dota as like this problem. And really that's what people actually liked in the early game. I think it was a problem in HOTS where they didn't have that. They actually looked at something in the game that was letting players warm up and get hits of dopamine and have fun, and they thought, oh, we're going to get rid of that. That's a game design problem. And I think this has happened a little bit with RTS, where it's like people kind of feel good sending the workers to the patches. In StarCraft 2, it's easier to send them to the patches. They go automatically, but you have to make sure that they're synced up, that they're balanced. They're doing their little synchronized swimming back and forth between the minerals. There's something to that, and I think people in game development don't think about it as much, you know. And even actually, Stormgate does have one thing about this that I like, which is like, and I'm not sure if it's still the same rule now, but like it was better to have workers on these patches in the front than the ones on the side up here, and there was like a way to cycle through that. That might be maybe too complicated, but just something like that where like a good player can kind of micromanage that and get ahead and optimize it. But a bad player, it doesn't really matter, because a bad player is going to play other bad players and they won't even have to worry about this thing, but good players can deal with it. The same way bad players in League of Legends can miss a bunch of last hits, and it's like not really important, because if they're also against bad players, it's not, you know, an issue. Yeah, like mineral boosting, Conch. Yeah, in StarCraft 1.
For example, this change should enable more sneaky plays and a variety of openings. We're also trying out a new economic change. Workers in all factions now train instantly with charges, instead of being delayed by a training time.
I actually think that's pretty good. I think that move here to have stuff just pop out, that's great. Yeah, thumbs up for that.
And all factions now train instantly with charges, instead of being delayed by a training time. This feels really snappy and allows workers to be more quickly deployed exactly when you need them, and gives newer players a bit more forgiveness if they fail to keep up constantly with their worker production. We've also significantly updated our AI bot opponents. Difficulty has been split into easy, normal, and hard. This AI will now train unit compositions in a more focused manner. These compositions can transition throughout a game and can vary from match to match, offering a great deal more variety. Bot opponents will also now research upgrades, cast basic abilities, and do a better job of scouting and harassing different locations than just your main base. On top of all this, we fixed a ton of bugs, implemented a bunch of stuff that I can't even remember for this video, and set the stage for some major upcoming releases, including new campaign missions, a big shakeup for Versus and our ladder pool, and some really fun surprises that we have in store for the next couple of months. Thank you for being on this journey with us. We appreciate you and couldn't do what we're doing without your support. And I'm very excited to see your reaction to these changes and what we have coming up very soon as we continue to make Stormgate as great as possible. Thank you for everything, and I'll see you on the battlefield.
So I've played the first set of campaign missions. It's like a completely different game. Like, I was stunned. It feels a lot better. It plays a lot better. And this isn't even 1.0. I do have to point out, though, I feel like they shared too much too soon. And I guess this really proves this was an early access game. I think a lot of times people think early access and they think of like a game that, you know, just they put out early and it's not done, and then they just fix bugs and they don't keep, you know, iterating. Clearly it's not the case with Stormgate, but I think they did too much marketing too soon for the game before it was ready. So the question's going to be now, as they continue to iterate, can they get people back into the game? Because, you know, even the early days when I played, I was like, oh, this feels like slow. Or, you know, when they said it, when the game was basically ready to launch, the sound didn't work. And so there were just too many things where people kind of come in, they try your game, and if it's not where it's at, and it, by the way, it's not up to players to understand game development. I've kind of learned this with casting. Is like I can, you know, talk about how complicated it is or the problems or the challenges you have. No one really cares. They want to have a good product, right? They want to enjoy this. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if they can get people back in. But I will tell you, go play the game if you haven't. It's so much smoother, and it made me super excited to see the changes they made. Because it actually felt good to play. And it sounded good to play, which was an issue before. And I think they're on the right... I think the biggest thing they fixed, besides like sound and some of the art, is just the pace at which stuff moves. There are, you know, you really got to find that like Goldilocks pacing in a game. It can be too slow or too fast. And so, yeah. Yeah, exciting stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you're going to come back and play Stormgate, I hope you do. Please be sure to like and subscribe. You can always join me on my Twitch stream where I play Stormgate, StarCraft, Warcraft 3, all these games. Battle Aces. I'm going to be playing Tempest Rising soon. Yeah, come there. It's Tasteless TV on Twitch. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.